Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. This is going to be episode 0. This is Real Distracted. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Thomas, and I'm glad you're here. If you're driving, you're working out, you're at work, you're working out, whatever you're doing, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Now, let's just get into why I'm starting this podcast. What is the purpose? Well, the purpose is really to have fun. I'm going to have fun and talk about movies. And the thing is I have ADHD really bad. So when I came up with the title, Real Distracted, it just hit me like a lightning bolt coming out of the sky. Just like that baseball bat from the, what's it called? The Natural. With, I always forget his name. See, I'm all over the place already. Robert Redford. So there's this movie, Robert Redford, The Natural. There's this special tree. That thing came down and it became this special bat. And that's kind of how this idea came up. I thought, what do I love? Other than talking, of course, what do I love the most? I love movies. That's my thing. I love movies. I love talking about movies. I love learning about movies. I love learning the backstories. I love finding out how they were made. And I think a lot of people are like that. You don't have to know every single cinematographer or director or writer in Hollywood. You don't have to know how much a movie costs or where it was filmed. You just know what you like, and that's okay. That is okay. At whatever level of film that you're interested in, it's okay with me, because at some point you have to start somewhere. Like, I think back when I think about movies, I'm gonna dedicate this episode 0 to some of my favorite movies. Now, I'm gonna do a list of movies, my top 10 favorite movies, and the thing is, I'm not prepared at all for this. I am absolutely not prepared. And it's not because I didn't want to be prepared. It's because, you know what? I just want to go off the cuff. I just want to go from one thing to the next and be natural. That's my thing. And plus, having ADHD actually helps going from one topic to the next. If anything, it helps. So in my head, I'm going to think of my top 10 favorite movies. And I really want my audience, even if it's just one person, I would like for you to contact me and tell me what you think about my list that I'm coming up with on the fly. And I'd like to know your top 10. So I'm going to do a Q&A every episode, and I'm going to give you my contact information. And whoever gives me the most interesting response, I'm going to read it, and I'm going to read your name out loud. And if you want to share a quote, or if you want to say hi to a family member, every episode, that's what I'm going to do. I've just decided that. The show is just, we're going to have fun. So let's get into that list now. Okay, so top 10. So if you ask me my favorite movie, that would be really hard. And I think people that love movies just like I do, I think that would be hard for them to answer too, because movies it's an emotional thing. Sometimes you want to watch a sad movie. Sometimes you're at a time in your life where things are sad. So it's really, really hard to tell what my number one movie would be. I can tell you that the top of my list is going to be True Romance. That is, if not my favorite movie, it's up there. True Romance. It was written by Quentin Tarantino, and it was directed by Tony Scott, the late great Tony Scott. And the cast was just amazing. When you look back at that cast, it was incredible. And if you've never seen True Romance, I would really suggest that you go see it. I'm not going to tell you what it's about in total, but it was a great film. It looked great. The pacing was great. I love stories that travel. speaking of which, so moving on to the next one, I'll say True Romance. I'm not going to say that's my number one movie, but I'm going to say that's definitely up there. So another one, let me write this down so I can keep track, actually, or I'm going to forget. You got to give me a break too, because this is a show about a guy who has ADHD. So you got to give the kid a break when he has to get a pen. So True Romance is definitely up there. Moving along, and it might be everybody else's favorite movie, but that's okay because it's mine. I'm not too cool to say that I like things that a lot of other people like. But The Big Lebowski, that's definitely up there for a million reasons. It's a funny movie. It's a buddy movie. It's kind of like a whodunit. That's another thing I like about The Big Lebowski is we're definitely going to do an episode of The Big Lebowski. I can guarantee you that. But one of the best things about The Big Lebowski is the flow of the conversation of these two friends that are just never on the same page, but you could tell that they're very close. They love each other. They're just, each one of them thinks the other one is kind of an idiot. And that's another great film that has an ensemble cast and great filmmakers, the Coen Brothers, the legendary Coen Brothers. So The Big Lebowski. Then I'm definitely going to go with, I mentioned sad earlier. So when I think of sad, but really good, is I want to say it came out in 1993 or 94. It's a movie called This Boy's Life. And I'm not saying that's my number third movie, it's not my top three, but it's up there in the top 10. This Boy's Life was so amazing. It's a true story. It's got Leonardo DiCaprio and it's got Helen Mirren and Robert De Niro, my favorite actor. And it's just an amazing, amazing story. It is very sad, but it is there's a lot of relatable stuff for me. I'm going to review that movie as well. And there's a lot of, I don't know how to describe it. It's about a kid that, just like me, he grew up an only child. His mom was single, just like me. Mom gets with a boyfriend who's abusive, and it's about this kid that is trying to do anything he can to break out of this town, Concrete, Washington. Funny story, my girlfriend and I got to travel to Washington recently, and she was nice enough to go with me on this journey to go through the town of Concrete, Washington, and it was a really big deal because there's this scene in the movie where he just wants to leave the town. It's such a great film. But so that's up there. If anyone has never seen it, anyone listening has never seen it, it's called This Boy's Life. It's amazing. It's based on a book by a writer named Tobias Wolff. So that's 3. So 4, I'm going to say Fight Club for sure. That was one of those movies that I saw at a young age. I think that came out in 98. So I'm about 18 or 19 when that comes out. And it just hit me. It was so amazing. That time frame, it was just so original. It made me read the book. It's one of the movies that I saw the movie once. I actually saw it at home. I saw it on HBO. I saw the movie. And then before the second time, so the gap between the first time I saw the movie and the second time I saw the movie was probably close to a year. And in between those two times, I had borrowed the book from somebody. I think my friend Steven had the book and he let me borrow it. And I read it. I hung out. This is a time when we all just used to hang out. This is before cell phones and everybody having the internet and whatever. We're just hanging out, and I just read this book this little paperback while I was sitting at his house over like one night or the weekend. We were hanging out and partying and drinking and stuff, and everybody was watching movies, and I just read the book while everybody was watching movies, and I just laughed. I thought the book was amazing. Then I watched it again. So Fight Club's there. This Boy's Life, Fight Club. Of course, it's probably going to be, some movies that aren't surprising. Of course, there's Pulp Fiction. That was a huge game changer. That's just an amazing movie, and that I will do a definite episode on. That really deserves it. Or maybe I'll do an episode on just on Quentin Tarantino and kind of mash it up and go over his timeline, because there's so much there. He changed the game. That movie, Pulp Fiction itself, was like, wow, that was a wake-up call. If I had to put these two, if I had to come up with an analogy for what Pulp Fiction was, if you were around at that time and when that came out and you remembered how that changed everything, it was like way before my time. But I think about what Easy Rider may have done for cinema, but just pop culture at the time. It was almost like, man, I just lost it. I just had this, thought I had this great thought in my head. I'm like, oh my God, it's just like, damn it. Maybe I'll come back to it. So there's Pulp Fiction. So I got True Romance. So then one of my favorite movies, I saw this when I was like 10 years old. And every time I watch this movie, I just think this is a perfect movie, is The Abyss. James Cameron, one of my heroes. Just so much respect for the guy, what he's done. Just a master filmmaker. And The Abyss is, I think it came out in 90 or 91. And, let me backtrack. Boom, boom. Follow along with me, everybody. So what I was going to say was, I think Quentin Tarantino was to film after Pulp Fiction came out. He was like the Kurt Cobain of film, or the Nirvana. Lawrence Bender, his longtime producer, they were like a band. Quentin Tarantino is the brains, and he definitely is the driving force. But not to say take anything away from the legacy of Kurt Cobain. It's just I remember. It's the only thing I can compare it to. I remember when Nirvana came out and what they did to music, what they did to culture, pop culture, and television. That was when MTV was in everyone's home. And when Nevermind came out, it was like playing every day, I think. And it was like the changing of the guard as far as the hair metal. And a friend of mine, I have a couple friends that know a lot more about music than I do, but I remember I was there. Like Poison and just hair metal. I don't know all of the hair metal. I never really liked it. But as a teenager, being 13, 14 years old, hearing Nevermind, it was like, wow, what is this? It changed the world, changed the game. I think if there was anybody to compare as far as a filmmaker or a film that you could compare Nevermind to, I would say Pulp Fiction. And I actually just thought of that while I'm talking about it now. But so Pulp Fiction's on there. Well, like I said, that's going back. So The Abyss, James Cameron, I love that. That's one of my favorite movies. I saw that when I was like 10 years old, and I watch that movie to this day, like I said, and it's amazing. It's about just some oil rig guys being down at the bottom of the ocean, just doing roughneck oil driller kind of shit. And They come across some extraterrestrial. I don't want to ruin it for you. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's definitely probably in my top 3. So that's 6. Now this list is getting tough. And I'm thinking about this all on the fly, remember. So, but I figured, hey, why not? I'm doing this as a little demo episode 0. Why not? What the heck? Let me think. So moving along, I gotta say that I gotta say Rushmore. So Wes Anderson he's another filmmaker that just changed things. It's when you watch a Wes Anderson film, which the reason I'll tell you, I've got a great story behind Rushmore. But when you watch a Wes Anderson movie, you think that you're watching in a really good way, in the best way possible. You feel like you're watching a French film, like a French filmmaker that's doing an American movie and in the best way possible. But it just so happens that this guy's from Texas, this guy, Wes Anderson. He started the careers of Luke and Owen Wilson, as everyone knows from a whole bunch of different movies. Idiocracy, Mike Judge, that's a great movie, by the way. I mean, they're both in so many great movies. Sorry about that noise. But so Rushmore it's even though it's Wes Anderson's second film, it's the first one that I saw. And I know I'm going to do an episode just on Wes Anderson, if not Rushmore. But I'm definitely going to have fun with a lot of stuff. And I love telling stories of the stuff that surrounds, how I came to find a movie, or a funny story about a friend that loved the movie too or hated it. I've got a bunch of those stories. So at the time, how I saw Rushmore for the first time, which Rushmore is a film that's got, I believe Jason Schwartzman's first movie, I believe, and it has Bill Murray, and it's this low budget. I want to say indie film. I'm not sure if it's an independent film, but it was definitely a low budget film. And I'm sure it did not do well in the box office, but it's just so amazing. So at the time, probably the best job I've ever had to date, not money wise, but working at Blockbuster Video in like 1998 was like the time of a life. I mean, that was like the time of my life. I'm like 18, 19 years old. I remember my buddies would always show up. Like my buddy Peter, my best friend Chris, my girlfriend's friends. Like I would work at Blockbuster, and when my friends weren't showing up, talking me into trying to leave early so we could go to the beach and go get drunk or whatever, I was talking to the customers, and my job was somebody would pick up a box, like, the tape boxes. I'm not sure if you've ever even been to Blockbuster, whoever's listening to it. You pick up the tape, they would go, "Oh, is this any good?" And I would say, "Oh, yeah." So my job was to restock, organize the movies, and I would get to comment. And it was like the best job ever. I think I made like $5.25 an hour or something like that. I would love to find one of those old paychecks. Oh my God. That would be like a great relic, because Blockbuster is no more. Well, maybe there's a couple in the world. Let me take a look at that. Yes, believe it or not, there is. Google says the last open Blockbuster store is located in a plaza in Bend, Oregon. So there's one lasting Blockbuster, and I'm sure it's just out of nostalgia. And I kind of wonder, do they have tapes there? Are they renting out tapes or DVDs? And by the way, so my story working at Blockbuster, that was when I'd say, so this is like 98, maybe 99, but it was around the time where DVDs were just starting to starting to blow up. Actually, you know what? I'm wrong. They weren't starting to blow up. They were just hitting the scene because at the Blockbuster, it was, I want to say, 92% VHS tapes and 8% DVDs. The DVDs, the DVD had its own little section that had maybe like 2 or 3 little half rows. But yeah, so there is one Blockbuster left. I remember the smell. You know, when you walk into Blockbuster, there's that smell of like, I don't know, like some kind of air freshener, but candy. It almost smells like the movie theater. It's like the movie theater smell minus the popcorn, you know, mixed with some dust floating around from someone just running the carpet, some commercial vacuum that they just ran. But it smelled like, you know, Twizzlers and thin mints or whatever. But yeah, so Rushmore, I found Rushmore working at Blockbuster. I would put up the new releases. The new releases it had its own wall. It was like the new releases were the perimeter wall. So from left to right, it went in alphabetical order. I was just talking to my buddy about this just today, I think, or yesterday. When you put movies up, if they start with the number, they go first. So I'm putting up movies, and I remember at that time, the last movie on the new release was You Have Mail with Meg Ryan. I still have never seen that movie, by the way. But so Rushmore, I'm putting it up, and there was just a couple of tapes, like the ones that weren't super popular. I'm like, what is this Rushmore? And I remember seeing it, and on the cover, it was like Jason Schwartzman. It was Jason Schwartzman in like a go-kart with Bill Murray standing over him smoking a cigarette or something. But I remember looking at that going, I wonder what that is. And then watching something else. Oh, another thing about Blockbuster was I got free unlimited movies. I could rent as many movies as I wanted, and I got a certain amount of games. So that was when I had a Nintendo 64. So that was really cool. But I watched Rushmore, and I was just like, oh my God, I love this movie. Wes Anderson is so original. His use of music, his writing, he's got these great pauses. The dialogue is so amazing. Sometimes the characters look right into the camera. There's like I said, I'm going to do a whole episode on him. I can't wait. I'm so excited, by the way, about this show. This is something that I'm really, really happy about. So I'll wrap it up here. So after Rushmore, I got to go with the Martin Scorsese film. And of course, my first, like most people, maybe not most people, because I'm, you know, if I guess the age group varies, but my introduction to Scorsese was Goodfellas. And that is, it's almost impossible to pick between Goodfellas and Casino. But there was some dynamic that I loved in Casino. But you know what? I'm just going to go Goodfellas. I have to go Goodfellas because I almost want to put them together, but so I got to go after Rushmore, number 8, I'm going to say Casino. And then number 9, I got to go back to my freaking hero, James Cameron. I'm going to say Terminator 2, actually. I think everybody knows why. The story was amazing. Terminator 1 was like a fucking, it was a fucking slasher film. It was this robot and how that's made. And we're going to do a whole nother episode on that. James Cameron. There's so much crazy shit, so much backstory to how that came about. But Terminator 2 was just so well made. And it was awesome because Terminator 1 had been successful, and that was his story. There's something online. I'll talk about social media and stuff and life and everything in the episodes, but there's something online where people think that Terminator was written by somebody else. But the truth of the matter is Terminator was written by James Cameron, who was working on another film, doing like the models, because he's like an art guy. He was doing some kind of models for another picture in Spain, and he had this really bad flu, and he had like 104, 105 fever, where as an adult you can start hallucinating, and I think that's what happened. And he woke up out of the middle of the night, and he had his art set with him in the hotel that he was staying at, and he painted a picture of this character that was half man, half machine, like the face, just the face, and he had like a 1911, for people who don't know, that's a gun, a 45 in his hand, and it was like a man. He had half flesh, half robot under his skin, and it was actually supposed to be Lance Hendrickson, but Arnold got the gig. We'll talk about that another day. But so I love Terminator 2 and what that did. That was one of the few films that I saw people, when I saw that in the theater, people stood up and clapped. And I thought, like, that's something that now that's number 9. So now to pick number 10 is really hard. I almost want to say that I'm going to make this an ongoing list. And anybody listening, I'm going to encourage you to tell me what you think of the list. So the number 10, I got to go. I don't really have a straight up comedy on there, which it really should matter. I shouldn't let that dictate what's going to be on the list. But oh, man. So I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about one of my favorite comedies is Coming to America. So to me, Coming to America and Trading Places are like the best comedies. But the movie that I watched over and over and over and over, and you know what? I'm going to give the number 10 slot to Quick Change. And maybe half of people, I don't know how many people, the percentage of people listening to this, I don't know if you've ever even heard of that, but it is the funniest fucking movie. I love it. It's a comedy, and it's an R movie. It's like a late 80s, maybe 1990, New York City crime comedy. And it's got, stars Bill Murray, Gina Davis, and what's the brother's name? Randy Quaid. And it's 3 people rob a bank. The bank robbery is perfect, but getting out of the city is impossible. And it's just fucking hilarious. So that's my 10. That's the 10. And mind you, I didn't give it any thought. I thought maybe I could do a top 10 list, but I knew I wanted to come up with them on the fly and feel the pressure and be real, you know. But I really want to thank you guys. This is episode 0. This is just a little short sample of what there is to come. And again, anybody listening, thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys. See you soon. See you on episode 1. We're going to be reviewing and talking about Deadpool versus Wolverine. I got to go opening day. I had a blast. I've actually seen it twice already. I got a funny story about the popcorn buckets. The awesome people dressed up in costumes. Went with my buddy. Had a great time. Can't wait to talk to you about it. I'll see you on episode 1. Thanks, guys.